The problem with religion is the idea of eternal hell. The idea that if we don't believe what the rulers of this realm that created our understanding of Western religion based on the ancient texts that Jesus Christ himself never wrote, although I understand the Bible to be a divinely inspired book, and I quote Jesus probably more than most Catholics and Christians do because of what he said to be representative of the deepest divine truths that you validate through further research in all different religions, especially writings of mystics of all different religions and times. And then you compare that to the ancient knowledge and the secret society knowledge. It all screams of everything Jesus spoke of. But again, Western religion, namely Catholicism, Islam, I think most sects of Christianity, they believe that if you don't believe in their interpretation and their doctrines and dogmas and their belief, then your soul is at risk of being abandoned by the God of love and mercy, because why? He's also justice, even though justice should be proportional and doesn't seem to add up to a blink of an eye, 100-year existence, and then eternal damnation and separation from love itself. The whole thing doesn't make sense. But the purpose of this video is to highlight that eternal hell is the problem. This endless religious debate online that is really just all of us judging each other. You get online, you get on these live channels, and you can get on there and have these debates day in and day out, never ending, never coming to a conclusion, because they're all focusing on the wrong thing, and that is what the argument from authority presents in the form of church fathers or texts that we don't know who wrote, but we're supposed to believe it was divinely inspired. The reason that we have these debates is because we are in fear that others are going to hell for all of eternity. And in that delusion, we also think that if we don't have this idea of eternal hell, that an unloving God, or that we can't make sense of an unloving God actually creating for his creation that was designed ignorant and unaware of the deeper divine truths that would most likely lead us to living in love. No, he takes his creation that he could have made more intelligent and more aware. He creates them dumb and unaware of love. And then when they don't love, he sends them away for all of eternity. Or no. Worse yet, we choose to avoid love for all of eternity, is what they'll tell you. And so once you pass away, God can't do anything because he's not all powerful. I mean, he is all powerful, but he can't do anything because you already made your choice, even though it's a temporary existence. And you didn't have all the tools, or, certainly many of us are in situations far worse than others. I myself, I lived a relatively nice life. I'm a decent human being. I am literally trying to serve the world in what I believe to be God's mission. I mean, when you think of eternal hell, you're thinking of like the worst individuals and all that. Well, a lot of us, we never fell into that category of someone that was going to be a terrible individual. But if you look at life in its wholeness from a reasonable, rational, merciful understanding of what it all means, it means that we're all on different paths and we all have different purposes, and all of us are playing a role in a sense, and it's what makes this life the magical experience that it is. And all of us will experience the results of this life. What all the near-death experiencers talk about. They talk about this life review in the end, and they judge themselves probably to the degree of their awareness as it pertains to how they made other people feel. But they don't talk about coming back being afraid of death afterwards. Actually, it's the exact opposite. These people that come back from having a near-death experience, they have a heart attack or a car accident, They end up in the hospital. They end up dead, get resuscitated, come back to talk about their experience. And it's this divine, profound experience with a great, big, bright white light, or sometimes Jesus Christ himself, or some monk figure, or some celestial being, what have you. And they all talk about how it's all about love. And yes, they have their life review where they judge themselves, and they make it clear that they were judging themselves. They didn't feel like they were being judged. This is a recurring theme that you always hear in these near-death experiences. And so it's in line with what Jesus said. Hey, guys, the kingdom is within you. Like, it's within each and every one of you. God himself resides within you. You can't take that too far, though, because if you say that we are all of God, then religious people will say, no, you're not God. You can't do that. That's pride. That's this. That's it. Regardless of the fact that when you identify as God and you identify as love, it's actually the quickest way to get you to live in a state of love, in a state of being that resonates at that love frequency, that frequency of oneness. And then if you can live in that authentically, you have reached the highest vibration and frequency that science is now measuring, thanks to guys like Joe Dispenza. And so this idea of hell and the eternal punishment, that fear, for one, is the lowest vibration, the opposite of love. But that fear is what drives all of this judgment of each other. It's what drives people to be so afraid that they have to believe things that don't add up and don't make sense, because the people before them, the men and women before them, that wrote these texts and then were in places of authority within a church hierarchy, they told us this is what we have to believe and that's it. Never mind, it doesn't make sense. We are infallible. They claim to be infallible in faith and morals, which is the furthest thing from humble. And it screams of corruption. Sounds like a recipe for deception. But, hey, we have to believe it, because if we don't, we should be afraid for our eternal soul. Why? Because hell is eternal. And it starts off with you saying you're just a dirty little sinner. You have original sin. You're unworthy, unrighteous. You suck, basically. And you can only hope that God will love you in the end if you do what we say. You take part in all of our rituals. You give us your money. And you be a good little intellectual slave. Whatever you do, don't ask questions. If you do ask questions, just make sure that when you ask a question and we give you an answer that doesn't make sense, you don't ask another question, or you don't run with that. You just accept that you can't make sense of it, but we're right and you're wrong. That's the message. That's what we're told to believe. And the goofiest thing about the whole thing is multiple religions have the same message. You can be Catholic or one of the various Christian denominations, and then you can be Muslim. And they're both saying, if you don't agree with our text, then you go to hell. What? For one, I have to use my brain to figure it out. And so what? If I choose the wrong one because my brain is too stupid to figure it out, what? Then I go to hell. I don't get like grace from God. Oh, you were just too stupid, Da Vinci. Like, we'll give you a pass. Come on. Oh no, but this guy, no, he knew. And then so you get out of here. Like, if I get to heaven and my family members are in hell, I'm leading a revolt. And I think any loving being up there in heaven is going to join me. God might be up there like, what are you guys doing? They are evil and not loving. They lived a terrible life. This blink of an eye, 100-year existence. It was they were terrible, so they deserve eternal punishment, right? Like, but the answer is no. And you have to paint God as this, this judge up there that calls himself merciful, but also justice, even though his punishment isn't proportional and doesn't sound like justice. It all makes you realize that in the same way we have good reason not to trust our governments of today and our leaders in our society today. I don't know why we are crazy enough to believe 100% without any question what the leaders and rulers of this realm put together in their religious texts that they chose for us to read. Whoever they had write them, sure, it wasn't Jesus himself. And then we don't know what sort of influence was there. Oh, and by the way, they burned all the other books by the heretics that said what they believed was just wrong, because we're the authority and the mainstream narrative is always true, right? No. We know that's not the case. Although some people do believe that some of these conspiracies are crazy, even though it seems rather obvious they're not at this point. But I don't want to get into that because that's not what this is about. I don't want to burn any bridges bringing up some of those conspiracies that if you think it's a conspiracy, you're crazy, which is essentially what religion tells us today, that if we don't agree 100% with what they say, you're going to burn forever and ever and ever and ever. Never mind, that is essentially what coercion is. And so we have to believe that God wants us to believe through coercion. So anyway, that's the rant for today. The problem is eternal hell. We eliminate eternal hell, then we eliminate all the fear associated with people believing something that doesn't make sense, going to war with each other over something on both ends that doesn't make sense because we've been told if we don't believe it and we don't do what we're told to do, then we're going to burn forever. So we have to go and commit these atrocities on our fellow human beings, not recognizing we're all one human family. The more you really start to think about all of this, and the more you realize this endless debate is literally talking about everything this life is not, which this life is for us to live the opportunity that we have at hand. And every instance that we interact with another human being, whether or not we love them or neglect to love them, that's it. That's what this is about. That is it. And Jesus echoes this in the Bible tons. Not to mention he calls it the law or the sum of the law and the prophets. What else do we need to hear? But anyway, this is the Raise Our Awareness Revolution, humanity's roar, catalyst to the Great Awakening. We are transitioning in a cosmic transition from covenants and commandments to principles and awareness, where we recognize that we are not sleepwalking sheep that must obey the authorities in any industry or whatever, whether it's the government, the military-industrial complex, the healthcare system, private industries, and all the way down to religion. We are not sheep. We are divine lions, and this is the Great Awakening. And humanity's roar aims to represent that symbolism and bring people together and inspire us to move on from this idea that we are intellectually incompetent to recognize that a lot of this doesn't make sense. And what does make sense is actually perfectly in line with what Jesus Christ taught. He himself said it's the sum of the law and the prophets. It is what all the mystics of all religions agree on, while the theologians will argue with each other till they're blue in the face, day in and day out, to no avail, with no end in sight. And so this is a clarion call for all of us to wake up and unite and come together. And reach out to me if you want to have further discussion. You want to have a debate, even better. I'm Da Vinci the Truth. I love all of y'all. God bless.